Hey guys, Joe from the Crazy New York Driver Show with the video for Friday, January 31st, 2014. Today we're going to talk about the eBay Global Shipping Program webinar that was held Thursday, January 30th. And just to clarify a few things first, right now it's actually Thursday night that I'm recording this video because earlier today from 2 to 3:30 I attended the webinar online and I made detailed notations what I wanted to talk about. Now I was planning on making this video tomorrow as usual, meaning Friday. However, at 4:30 I get a call from one of my drivers, an over-the-road trucker who's bringing me a delivery tomorrow, Friday, a rather large delivery of pallets loaded with merchandise. So I don't know exactly what time he's coming, so I figured I'd bang this video out tonight so I'd have time to edit it and get it uploaded for Friday as usual. Okay? So that's that. Let's get started talking about the eBay Global Shipping Program for 2014, what's changed, what hasn't. Everything I tell you is material that I gleaned from the webinar and comes from eBay representatives themselves, okay? Okay, I did like the webinar and I think it's a very good thing that eBay does putting these things out. I would like to see an eBay webinar once a month. It's almost like the Crazy New York Driver Show where they would come out and talk about eBay issues. Sadly, I don't see it happening, but I think it would be great if they came out once a month and did these webinars for sellers. Alright, so let's get started. Quite a few questions and topics were presented, and I'm going to cover them in the order they were presented, so if I seem to jump around a little, you'll just have to forgive me. Okay. Now, as you probably know, the Global Shipping Program consists of this. It's a simple program you have the option to opt into or opt out of, where you send your item to a facility in Kentucky, where it's then taken over and received by a third party who in some cases opens it and inspects it, we'll talk about that later, and then forwards it to the country of its destination, whether it be Russia, Germany, etc. The Global Shipping Program has divided this channel big time. Some of you guys love it. Some of you guys hate it. Some of my best friends, some really good friends of mine, love the Global Shipping Program. Scott loves the Global Shipping Program. Griff loves it. He's always upselling it. Whereas I notice people who really hate it are people who've been burned by an overseas bidder. And the point here is not to be burned. Because I know if I sent something overseas and I got burned, I'd hate it too. At this point, I have not opted in. I'm sure a lot of you haven't either. After this, we'll take a poll and see if any of you guys are thinking about opting in. Okay, the first thing they asked us, they said, are you selling any items on eBay internationally? And there were three choices. Yes, I sell quite a few. B, I sell only occasionally. Or C, not at all. Alright? And how did it break down, you probably want to know. 41% of the eBayers surveyed said they sell with the Global Shipping Program all the time. 35% said occasionally. And 23% said never. And I was in the 23%. Now, first let's talk about what you have to do if you want to join the Global Shipping Program. Number one, you have to opt in. All you have to do is go to My eBay, click on Site Preferences, then click on International, and you would click GSP. Global Shipping Program, and you have the option to exclude certain countries. For instance, just because you're going to be shipping internationally, you don't have to ship to every country if you don't want. Right now, eBay supports shipping to 42 countries through the Global Shipping Program. There are certain countries eBay does not ship to in the Global Shipping Program. One of them is Brazil. Okay? Now, if you wanted to ship, let's say, to 40 of those countries, and you didn't want to ship to, let's say, Russia, you could exclude Russia. You do not have to ship to Russia. Also, you don't have to use the Global Shipping Program for every single one of your items. You can pick and choose the items at will that you wish to include. Okay, now, one of my biggest concerns is the fact that it has been said that Pitney Bowes, the third-party shipper here, opens our packages when we're shipping them, and in some cases repackages them at will. So I wrote that in as a question to see if they would answer it. You were allowed to type in questions. They did answer it. However, they didn't answer it from me. They answered it from another seller. And let's talk about this. The representative said that yes, the third-party shipper does open the packages, but not all the time. There are certain criteria that have to be met for them to open the packages, and the criteria consists of the following. Number one, there are certain countries that insist on the shipper opening the packages to verify that the item claimed on the box is in fact the item being sent. Number two, combined shipping. For instance, let's say I'm the shipper. I'm the seller, and I'm selling a Chevy hubcap, a Ford hubcap, and a Buick hubcap. One guy bids on 3 of my auctions in Germany, Chevy, Ford, Buick. I combine them, I put them in the box, and I ship them to Kentucky. They are required by eBay rules to open that box and see if there's a Chevy hubcap, a Ford hubcap, and a Buick hubcap in there. Okay? The representative claims that once they inspect the package, they do not take out packaging or add packaging. Okay? I'm just telling you what they said, all right? You guys can make your own mind up, because I had heard otherwise, all right? There are certain countries that actually have no tracking. There is no way to track packages in certain countries, okay? Very limited amount, but certain ones. I want you to keep that in mind for when we talk about seller protection. So, as far as your items being opened, will your items be opened when you use the Global Shipping Program? In my opinion, yes. There's a greater chance of them being opened than not being opened, okay? Another thing they brought up was sometimes they open them up to see if the item is broken. I mean, how do they know which ones to open? Apparently they have some set of criteria that they go by. Now, as far as the seller protection is concerned, I have heard an awful lot of stories from you good people saying you shipped an item and the guy left you negative feedback because it took 6 weeks to get there, or it arrived broken, etc., etc. The representative said that once it arrives to Kentucky in good condition, you are covered. So if it ships from Kentucky to Germany, let's say, and it breaks on the way, and you get negative feedback, you can get it removed. However, let's keep this in mind. Number one, it's a pain in the neck for you to stop what you're doing, call eBay Trust and Safety, and get it removed. We all know how tedious that is. I've done it myself a bunch of times. All right? Another thing. Somebody just PM'd me tonight with an interesting situation he ran into. He got a negative feedback, and he called eBay to get it removed. It was an unjust feedback, and they removed it. However, they did not remove the DSR dings he received. According to my subscriber, you have to get in touch with two different offices. You got the trust and safety guys who handle the feedback, the negative feedback removal, but they cannot remove the low DSRs. They have to send in a request to another department. So my point there is, next time you guys call in to have negative feedback removed, be sure to remind the representative to take off the bad DSRs that were left for you. Okay? Now, there are certain categories you cannot sell in the global shipping program. One off the top of my head that they brought up was weapons. I can't see why anybody would ship a weapon overseas anyway. But there are some other limitations, even in the categories that are included. There's a weight limitation. Did you know that? The weight limitation for the global shipping program is 66 pounds. Anything over 66 pounds isn't going. All right? Returns. You do not have to accept returns through the global shipping program if you don't want to. And for those of you guys who offer free shipping like me, you're only paying for the shipping to Kentucky. The buyer pays any duties and the shipping from Kentucky overseas. You're not going to be charged for that. If a seller chooses to opt into the global shipping program, and should he send an item and it's delayed, whether it's delayed in customs, delayed because of the weather overseas or whatever, and the buyer leaves him negative feedback, the representative said eBay will remove the feedback. As long as there's a tracking number from your shipping location to Kentucky. So if you ship an item tomorrow to Kentucky and it gets there in 2 or 3 days, and then like 3 weeks down the line, your guy gets the item and he says it took too long, you're covered. Okay? This is what they're saying. You will be covered in that respect. Another important thing, which also touches on this, there are some international payments that will be held by PayPal. Now, how many of you guys have sold an item right here in the USA? Received a letter from eBay saying, congratulations, your item's sold. But then you get a letter from PayPal saying, do not ship the item yet. Things don't look quite right. Give us 24 hours to check this out. Now, I've had them. Okay? Now, most of the time, they work out. I've had maybe 8 or 9 of them, and out of those 8 or 9, only one time did PayPal knock the sale down and say, no good, the deal's off. What I'm saying is, here the hold will be longer. So there is a good chance PayPal will be holding some of your funds. And you are not to ship the item, of course, until you get your money, right? Now, when that particular shipment goes to the third-party shipper, they're going to spend a little bit extra time on that one. They're going to inspect it. They're going to make sure everything's kosher. I'm just telling you right now. I'm not sure what percentage of these overseas sales PayPal even holds. Some of you guys who are right now participating might want to jump in here and tell us, what percentage of your sales are held by PayPal? And have you had any problems? International buyers will see the international shipping price before they bid on your item or do a buy it now. So they can't cry to you and say, oh, geez, the shipping is so expensive, cancel the sale. Don't take that as an excuse. We've talked about this before. eBay is very upfront about putting the prices right on your listing. Okay? So like let's say I'm selling an item, it doesn't matter, let's say it's $50 with free shipping. All right? So the buyer will see domestic shipping free. Then he will see overseas shipping, which is the shipping from Kentucky to his home country, which let's say is Germany. I don't know, let's say it's $25. All right? And then he will see under it tariff duty. Any tariff duties he has to pay. So eBay is very upfront about that. So just don't let anybody walk on you and say, oh, I didn't know it was going to be that expensive, because it's in black and white. In order to use the global shipping program, and I probably should have said this earlier, you must accept PayPal. And only PayPal for your sale. You can't do it with ProPay. What can I say about that? Not much. It's the same thing with when I sell my fixed price listings with immediate payment. Only PayPal is accepted. And to be honest with you guys, that's a small price to pay for weeding out deadbeat bidders. To this day, my number one complaint that I read from all you guys are deadbeat bidders. All right? They're not going to go away, but there's ways you can block them. Now, feedback removal is not automatic. For instance, if an overseas bidder doesn't buy your item and leaves you negative feedback, even though he never paid, truthfully, in my opinion, he shouldn't be allowed to even do that. But if he does it, you have to call eBay and get it removed. They'll happily remove it, but it's an extra burden on you. Just like I talked about earlier, if a buyer complains that his item was held up in customs and leaves you negative feedback, eBay will remove it, so they say, but you have the burden to call eBay and present your case. Undeliverable items. There will be times overseas when an item is undeliverable because it's the buyer's fault. He is supposed to have a verified PayPal address. If this does happen, again, eBay claims they will remove the negative feedback. Again, the burden's on you to call them. I just found out today, eBay Buyer Protection has been officially renamed eBay Money Back Guarantee, and that's on all their items. Okay? All their items. I found the panelists to be very informative and upbeat on the global shipping program. Naturally, you would expect them to be. eBay seems to be hyping this as a way to increase your sales. Now, the question is, what items do you guys sell? Because I'm going to give you some examples right now with me and how this would affect me if I was to join the global shipping program. Now, let's talk about eBay Motors first, because I'm real big on eBay Motors. As you know, my eBay Motors ID is Hubcap Joe's. I'm a top-rated seller. There is a very big demand for auto parts overseas, especially in South America, Australia, and Canada. I know from past experiences. During the early days of eBay, back when we were allowed to take money orders, I used to sell a lot of stuff to Australia and Canada. Canada wasn't too bad, all right, but Australia was a little bit more cumbersome to deal with because people wanted to pay with Western Union. And I found myself having to go down to the Western Union office, and shipping was really expensive to Australia, probably the most expensive country. So if I'm selling, let's just say a set of hubcaps for $100, the shipping was $150, more than the item. But the people were willing to pay it because the merchandise is not available in their country. So my point is, for you guys in eBay Motors, I think the global shipping program would open up new doors for you. Let's talk about other things I deal with. sports cars and toy trucks. Not so much. Not so much. Sports cars especially, no. Because each country tends to be big on their own stars, their own superstars. And the Hess toy trucks, not as much unless it's a really rare one. And again, the problem with the toy trucks is they're made of plastic, a lot of them, and they break easily. Whereas I don't have that problem with my hubcaps or any auto parts. Most of them are made of metal. Okay? So there's very, very few instances when things break. Very few. But those toy trucks, they do tend to break. You got to be careful with them. So basically, guys, I know a lot of this stuff was a rehash, but I'd like to take an informal poll. How many of you guys right now are in the global shipping program? And for those of you guys who aren't, do you think you will give it a try? I am not in the global shipping program, and I'm toying with the idea of trying it. Alright? I really am. I just want to see how it's going to work. I'm not saying I swear I'm going to, but I'm thinking about it. I know some of you guys have horror stories about where you sent an item to somebody and they kept the item and got the money back from PayPal. I know if that happened to me, I'd be pissed off too. Alright? That's terrible. Absolutely terrible. But then there were some of you guys, like some of my friends who I mentioned earlier, who really love the program and they're making some coin. And that can't be ignored. So basically what I'm saying, you make up your own mind. Alright? You've heard the evidence. Comments below. Do you like what you heard? Do you like their rules? Do you dislike them? Especially you guys who are not in the global shipping program. Do you think you're going to try it? I might. No promises, but I might. Remember, I went for years without taking PayPal. But when I got my assurances, I took it, and I'm happy I do. Alright? Before I let you go, one more thing on a timely basis. You're watching this video probably on Friday, January 31st, which means, you know what's happening in 2 days? Super Bowl. Any comments on that, guys? I hope you guys got some good numbers in your pools. As usual, I drew my allotment of 5s and 2s. I think every year I draw more 5s and 2s than anybody else. Unfreaking believable. In another footnote to the Super Bowl, for the first time ever, it's being held in New Jersey, which is exactly about 25 minutes from where I work. And surprisingly, I heard on the news that the much hyped mega event is tending to be a bit of a wash in that there are a lot of tickets still available, and they attribute it to two things. Number one, 2 Western teams playing here on the East Coast, so lack of local enthusiasm for one thing, and number 2, the bitter cold and lousy weather we have here. Right now it's 20 degrees out. The forecast for Sunday is going to be cloudy, no surprise there, but the temperature is actually going to go up to approximately 40 degrees. We haven't seen 40 degrees in 3 weeks. I'm welcoming that. Guys, I'm Crazy New York Driver. You're not. Thanks for watching. Comments on the global shipping program, pro or con, below. Whatever you want to say. Are you a part now? If you're not, do you think you might try it out? Okay? And ideas for next week's video, please. Thank you. Rock on, guys, and hope you get some good numbers for the Super Bowl, because I sure didn't. See ya.